Hi everybody, this is Anne. I've been wanting to start a project where I create and decorate a set of 4 similar mugs. As my forte is making unique individual custom mugs, creating 4 consistently thrown pieces adds a level of difficulty to the project that I don't have a lot of experience with. Recently I came across some cool profile ribs and wanted to see if they could assist me in creating that uniformity. If you haven't used these before, they work like generic ribs, except the edges are specifically contoured to be used during the shaping portion of the wheel throwing process. In this video, I'll demonstrate how I use several of these ribs for my project. These particular ribs I have were made by Outpost Pottery. They were actually programmed into a computer and printed out of hard plastic using a 3D printer. I'm not compensated by Outpost Pottery in any way, but we'll leave a link to their site in the description if you'd like to check them out. These taller ribs were designed for creating mug profiles. You can see that you get different looks depending on which side you use. They even added notches along the foot and the rim for you. These smaller ribs were created to shape small bowl profiles or just for shaping the bottoms of your pieces for a consistent foot. Since my goal is consistency, I've weighed out 4 mounds of clay 1 pound each. So let me get started with the first mug. As with any mug, I slammed the clay down and stuck it to the bat. I pushed down on the mound to begin the centering process, then coned it up and down until it was centered completely. If you'd like to see a video on my best tips for throwing mugs, check out the link above. I then hollowed out the clay and opened the floor. Again, for consistency, I measured in finger lengths how wide the floor was when I opened it. I'll do the same thing on the other mugs in the set. This one's 3 fingers wide. I gently pulled up the top section of clay to thin it out so the mug would not be top-heavy. I pushed the clay along the bat inward, thrusting the clay at the bottom upward. Now I could get underneath that ring of clay and work it with my fingers so I get the height I needed. I repeated that process for the last pull. I used my red rib on the inside of the clay to smooth it out. Again with my red rib, I smoothed the outside of the clay. I wasn't happy with the top of the mug. The clay was uneven and wider than the base, which I'm not a fan of. So first I used my needle tool to even out the rim. I then used my red rib along the inside for support and pushed the clay from the outside against the inner rib to decrease the diameter of the rim. Now all I needed to do was use my fingers to round the rim. You can see here that the mug is relatively straight up and down, which is what I want before using the profile rib. Now comes the shaping portion. I've decided to use the inward contoured side of the rib as the shape for my mugs. You can see it already has notches for the foot and the rim too. I'll use the surface of the bat for stability as I work, so my first step was to clean the bat and make sure the surface was wet enough to allow the plastic rib to glide easily. There will also be friction where the clay will meet the rib, so I needed to wet the surface of the mug too. I began working, making sure to hold the rib on the outside with one hand, while the other hand was on the inside pushing the clay outward. Notice I used my thumb on top of the rib for extra pressure to keep the rib flat to the bat. It took several small passes to work the clay tight against the rib and give the clay memory so it wouldn't stretch back into its original shape. For consistency and height, I steadied my needle tool on the top of the rib and traced along the top, removing that clay for a nice even rim. I still had a few ring marks in the clay from my tool, so I re-wet the clay and smoothed them out with a rubber rib. I rechecked the shape to make sure I didn't knock it out of alignment. Oh good, that fits like a glove. Finally, I removed the excess water on the inside floor with a rubber spatula. One other thing I wanted to try was one of those little ribs, so I thought I'd change the profile of the foot of this mug. I simply pushed the edge of the rib into the clay at the bottom for a more squared-off look. For me, I don't like a mug to look like it's growing out of the bat, so I did end up undercutting the foot a bit. Now all I had to do was repeat this on all 4 mugs. Of course that's easier said than done, and the subject for a whole other video. But I did find the pre-shaped rib actually did help with the consistency of the shape and the height for all 4 mugs. I'd like to thank the newest members of our Little Street Pottery Research Facility team. If you'd like to join the team and earn a title, click on the Super Thanks button or the link to buy me a coffee. If you liked our video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. See you next time in the studio.